You filthy animal! How dare you contaminate our space? Victoria Kensington's shriek pierces the air of the grand, majestic hotel ballroom. Her face twists with pure hatred as she charges toward Marcus Sterling, who stands peacefully near the charity auction displays. 400 elite guests gasp, their phones instantly raised to record the commotion. Marcus remains perfectly calm in his immaculate tuxedo, not even blinking as she approaches. Victoria grabs her wine glass, the red liquid sloshing violently with her movements. You want to play dress-up with your betters? Let me show you what we do to uppity blacks who forget their place. She hurls the entire contents of the glass at his face. Vintage Bordeaux explodes across his white shirt, wine streaming down his chest and dripping onto the pristine marble floor. Marcus stands statue still, burgundy liquid dripping from his chin. Then, impossibly, he smiles. What Victoria doesn't know is that this single moment will destroy everything her family has built over 3 generations. The morning sun had streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Sterling's corner office just hours earlier, casting long shadows across the mahogany furniture. At exactly 9:47 a.m., he slid a Mont Blanc pen across the final page of the most important contract in Kensington Enterprises' 75-year history. $1.5 billion, Robert Kensington whispered, his voice trembling with relief. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the office's aggressive air conditioning. Marcus, you've just saved my entire family legacy. The handshake between the two men sealed more than a business deal. For Kensington Enterprises, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy after 3 failed quarters, this partnership represented salvation. The urban development project was set to create 15,000 jobs, fund 30 schools, and transform abandoned neighborhoods into thriving communities. Marcus Sterling embodies everything the American dream promises. At 42, he built Sterling Capital Group from nothing into the nation's largest fund focused on sustainable development. Forbes ranks him among the 50 most influential business leaders, and his office walls display photographs with presidents, Nobel laureates, and community leaders whose lives his investments have transformed. But success hasn't changed his core habits. Marcus never announces his presence at social events. Instead, he blends into crowds, observing how potential partners treat people they consider beneath them. Tonight's charity gala represents the perfect opportunity to study the Kensington family's true character, Marcus had thought. I'll see you at the Future Foundation's gala, Marcus told Robert as they shook hands that morning, though I prefer to keep a low profile at these events. Robert nodded enthusiastically. Of course, Victoria will be thrilled to meet you properly. She's been organizing this fundraiser for months. What Robert didn't mention was his wife's history. Victoria Kensington has spent 20 years perfecting the art of sophisticated racism. Internal company emails buried by expensive lawyers reveal her systematic efforts to block promotions for employees of color. She fired 3 black executives on fabricated charges, paid settlement money to silence discrimination lawsuits, and used her social influence to blacklist minority-owned contractors. The Kensington Empire spans 3 generations, built on old Southern money and newer real estate ventures. Their grandfather struck oil in Texas during the 1940s boom. Their father expanded into commercial development during the Civil Rights era, carefully avoiding integration requirements through legal loopholes and political connections. Now the empire is crumbling. Foreign competitors have undercut their prices, and environmental regulations are strangling their oil operations. Most devastating of all, younger investors demand corporate social responsibility. Companies with poor diversity records are losing access to major pension funds and institutional investors. Robert has mortgaged everything. The family mansion in the Hamptons carries a $15 million lien. Their yacht sits at the marina, payments 3 months behind. Private school tuition for their twin daughters remains unpaid. Without Marcus's partnership, Kensington Enterprises will file for bankruptcy within 6 months. The irony cuts deep. The very communities Victoria has spent decades excluding now hold the key to her family's survival. Marcus's investment acts as the lifeline for the inner-city neighborhoods she has worked to keep segregated. Her racist attitudes, once protected by wealth and influence, now threatened to destroy everything. At 3 p.m., Marcus leaves his office for a haircut in his old neighborhood. The barber shop, wedged between a laundromat and a corner grocery, buzzes with conversation about rising rents and vanishing opportunities. Mr. Miller, who has cut Marcus's hair for 15 years, doesn't know his customer's net worth. "Community's changing fast, Mr. Miller," Marcus observes, trimming around Marcus's ears. "Young folks can't afford to stay. Families have been here for 50 years, getting pushed out by developers." Marcus listens without revealing that tonight's charity gala will fund programs designed to address exactly these problems. The Kensington Partnership will create affordable housing, job training centers, and small business loans. If everything proceeds as planned, Mr. Miller's neighborhood will benefit immensely. But Marcus has learned that character reveals itself in unguarded moments. Tonight, attending the gala anonymously, he will observe how the Kensington family treats people they don't recognize. Their behavior will determine whether this partnership continues or dies before it begins. The Future Foundation's gala, scheduled for 7:02 p.m. at the Grand Majestic Hotel, represents more than fundraising. 400 of the city's most influential people will gather to support educational programs for underprivileged youth. The bitter irony isn't lost on Marcus. Many attendees have spent careers perpetuating the very inequalities they'll claim to oppose tonight. As evening approaches, Marcus selects a simple black tuxedo, deliberately avoiding the custom-made suits that might signal his wealth. Tonight, he wants to be invisible, just another face in the crowd. He has no idea that this decision will trigger events that destroy one family while transforming thousands of lives. The contract sits safely in his briefcase, signed and sealed. By tomorrow, pending tonight's observations, it will either launch the largest urban renewal project in the city's history or become expensive kindling for the fireplace. The Grand Majestic Hotel ballroom pulses with the energy of the elite. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors, while a string quartet plays softly in the corner. The air carries the mingled scents of expensive perfume, aged wine, and the subtle aroma of truffle canapes circulating on silver trays. Marcus Sterling enters through the main doors at 7:45 p.m., deliberately arriving after the initial rush. His black tuxedo, while perfectly tailored, lacks the flashy accessories that might signal extreme wealth. No custom cufflinks, no designer bow tie, no Rolex catching the light. He moves through the crowd like water, observing conversations without drawing attention. Near the silent auction display, Victoria Kensington holds court with her inner circle. Her platinum blonde hair is swept into an elaborate chignon, secured with diamond pins worth more than most people's annual salary. The Cartier necklace at her throat catches the light with each animated gesture as she discusses the evening's charitable mission. "We're here to help those less fortunate," she tells her friends, her voice carrying across the nearby tables. "Though sometimes I wonder if certain people can truly be helped. You know, some cultures just don't value education the way we do." Her companions nod knowingly, wine glasses tilting in agreement. These conversations happen at every charity gala, Marcus notes. The wealthy discuss poverty like a distant curiosity, never acknowledging their role in perpetuating the systems they claim to want to fix. Marcus approaches the auction display, genuinely interested in a series of paintings by emerging artists from inner-city schools. The vibrant colors and bold strokes speak to experiences most people in this room will never understand. He reads each artist's biography carefully, noting their struggles and triumphs. The technique in this piece shows remarkable emotional depth, he comments to an elderly woman examining the same painting. The way the artist uses shadow and light creates such powerful contrast. His knowledge surprises her. They discuss art history for several minutes before she moves on, leaving Marcus alone with the display. He doesn't notice Victoria's gaze settling on him from across the room. Victoria studies this stranger with growing irritation. A black man alone at her charity gala, speaking eloquently about art and clearly comfortable in formal wear. Everything about him violates her sense of the natural order. In her worldview, black people attend events like this as servers or entertainment, not as guests examining expensive artwork. She approaches with the confidence of someone who has never been challenged on her home turf. Her heels click against the marble in a steady rhythm that draws attention from nearby guests. The scent of her perfume, a custom blend costing $800 per ounce, announces her presence before her voice does. "Excuse me," she says, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I don't believe we've been introduced." Marcus turns with a polite smile. "Good evening. Beautiful event you've organized here." "Thank you." Her response carries no warmth. "I'm curious, though. I know everyone who should be here tonight. Did someone invite you as their guest?" The question hangs in the air like smoke. Nearby conversations pause as people sense the tension developing. Marcus maintains his calm expression, recognizing the trap being set. "I received an invitation," he replies simply. The cause seemed worthy of support. Victoria's eyes narrow. The non-answer confirms her suspicions. "An invitation? That's interesting. You see, I personally approved every name on our guest list. I'm quite certain I would remember approving." She pauses, looking him up and down. "Someone like you." The phrase, "someone like you," carries centuries of coded meaning. Marcus feels the familiar weight of assumptions, the casual cruelty of prejudice wrapped in polite language. Around them, guests pretend not to listen while straining to catch every word. "Perhaps there was an oversight," Marcus suggests, still maintaining his diplomatic tone. "An oversight?" Victoria's voice rises, attracting more attention. "The only oversight here is whatever confusion allowed you to think you belong in this room." She signals to a nearby server, a young black woman carrying champagne flutes. "Excuse me, dear, is this man with your catering company? He seems to have wandered away from the kitchen." The server looks confused and slightly frightened. "No, ma'am, I don't know him. I don't." Victoria turns back to Marcus with triumph gleaming in her eyes. "Just as I thought. Security!" Her voice carries across half the ballroom now. "We have someone here who doesn't belong." Marcus remains perfectly still as conversations die throughout the room. Phones emerge from purses and jacket pockets. The charity gala transforms into a theater with Marcus cast as the unwilling star of Victoria's performance. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus says calmly. "Perhaps we could discuss this privately." Victoria laughs, the sound sharp and unpleasant. "Oh no, I think everyone here deserves to see what happens when people try to infiltrate spaces they haven't earned access to." She moves closer, close enough that her perfume overwhelms his senses. "Let me make something very clear to you, boy. This isn't some community center or welfare office. This is an event for people who actually contribute to society, not people looking for handouts." The word "boy" strikes like a physical blow. Marcus's jaw tightens slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. Around them, guests shift uncomfortably, some pulling out phones to record while others back away, unwilling to be associated with the escalating confrontation. "You want to know what I think?" Victoria continues, emboldened by the growing audience. "I think you saw this event advertised somewhere and decided to try your luck. Maybe you thought you could blend in, steal some silverware, or con some wealthy widow out of her jewelry money?" Her voice grows louder with each accusation. "But we see through people like you. We know exactly what you are and where you come from. You can put on a fancy suit and try to speak properly, but underneath you're still just another—" She catches herself before saying the word, but it hangs in the air anyway, understood by everyone present. Marcus's hands remain clasped behind his back, his posture perfect despite the verbal assault. "Mrs. Kensington," he says quietly, "I think you might want to reconsider your approach here." "Reconsider?" She grabs a wine glass from a passing server, the crystal stem trembling slightly in her grip. "The only thing I'm reconsidering is why security hasn't removed you yet." Two security guards approach hesitantly, uncertain how to proceed given Marcus's calm demeanor and obvious education. They stop several feet away, waiting for a clear direction. "You know what your problem is?" Victoria continues, wine sloshing in her glass. "You people always think you can just walk into places you don't belong. You see successful people living successful lives, and instead of working to improve yourselves, you try to take shortcuts." The string quartet has stopped playing. 400 guests watch in silence as Victoria's mask of civility completely dissolves. "Let me teach you something about respect," she says, raising the wine glass high above her head. The vintage Bordeaux catches the light like liquid rubies. "This is what happens to animals who don't know their place." The wine arcs through the air in a perfect crimson stream, striking Marcus's white shirt and spreading across the expensive fabric like spilled blood. Drops scatter onto the marble floor, creating a pattern that will be photographed and shared millions of times before morning. Marcus doesn't flinch. He doesn't raise his hands to block the wine or step backward to avoid the splash. He simply stands there, burgundy liquid dripping from his chin onto his bow tie, and smiles. The smile isn't submission or embarrassment. It's knowledge. It's patience. It's the expression of someone who understands exactly what just happened and knows precisely what will happen next. Victoria steps back, breathing heavily, the wine glass empty in her trembling hand. Around them, the ballroom erupts in shocked whispers and clicking camera phones. She has just provided the internet with the perfect symbol of privilege and racism captured in high definition from multiple angles. Now she announces to the room, maybe he'll understand that this isn't his world. Marcus reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws a pristine white handkerchief. He dabs at the wine on his chin with deliberate care, never breaking eye contact with Victoria. "Mrs. Kensington," he says softly, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "I believe it's time you learned exactly whose world this really is." The ballroom erupts into chaos as phones flash like paparazzi cameras. Guests crane their necks, pushing closer to witness the spectacle while simultaneously backing away from potential association with Victoria's outburst. The air crackles with tension, and the metallic scent of spilled wine mixed with expensive perfume. Victoria Kensington stands in the center of it all, chest heaving with righteous indignation. Wine stains her own dress, where droplets splashed back from Marcus's shirt. Her diamond earrings catch the light as she turns to address the growing crowd, feeding off their attention like fuel to a fire. "Did you all see that?" she announces, voice carrying across the marble floor. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. These people think they can just walk into our spaces, demand our respect, and when confronted with reality, they stand there with that smug expression." Marcus continues dabbing wine from his shirt with methodical precision. Each movement remains controlled, deliberate, almost meditative. The contrast between his calm and Victoria's hysteria creates a powerful visual. Look at him. Victoria gestures wildly, the wine glass still clutched in her manicured fingers, acting like he belongs here, like he's our equal. Well, let me tell you something about equality. She moves closer to Marcus, close enough that her voice drops to a venomous whisper that somehow carries to every corner of the room. You can dress up in your little costume and pretend to be civilized, but we all know what you really are. You're a predator looking for wealthy white women to exploit. The accusation hits like a physical blow. Several guests audibly gasp. Marcus's hand pauses for a fraction of a second before resuming its careful cleaning motion. His expression never changes, but something shifts in his eyes. Not anger, but certainty. A flicker of steel beneath the surface. "Calm, Mrs. Kensington," he says quietly. "I think you should stop talking now." "Stop talking?" Victoria laughs, the sound sharp and ugly. "Oh, I'm just getting started. You want to know what I really think about your kind?" The security guards exchange nervous glances but remain frozen, unsure how to handle a situation where the aggressor is the event's primary organizer, and the victim refuses to respond with violence or retreat. Margaret Thornfield, a prominent socialite, steps forward with her phone raised. "Victoria, dear, perhaps you should—" "Don't you dare defend him, Margaret," Victoria snaps. "This is exactly how they infiltrate our society. They find bleeding-heart liberals who fall for their sob stories, and before you know it, they're demanding reparations and special privileges." She turns back to Marcus, emboldened by her perceived support. "You want to know the truth about people like you? You're genetically inferior. Science proves it. Lower IQ, higher crime rates, inability to maintain stable families. You belong in the projects with your own kind, not pretending to be something you'll never be." The words hang in the air like poison gas. Even her closest allies look uncomfortable now, shifting their weight and avoiding eye contact. Someone in the crowd whispers, "Jesus Christ," under their breath. Marcus folds his handkerchief carefully and returns it to his pocket. When he looks up, his smile has transformed into something more dangerous. "Are you quite finished?" he asks. "Finished?" Victoria's voice rises to nearly a shriek. "I haven't even started. You want to stand there in your stolen tuxedo acting superior? Let me tell you about superiority." She grabs another wine glass from a nearby table, this one filled with white wine. The liquid sloshes dangerously as she waves it for emphasis. "My family built this city while your ancestors were swinging from trees. We created the businesses, the culture, the civilization that makes gatherings like this possible. And you have the audacity to walk in here and demand equal treatment." The phones keep recording. Social media notifications begin chiming throughout the room as early videos start going viral. Charity Gala Meltdown begins trending within minutes, but the full story won't emerge until much later. "You know what your real problem is?" Victoria continues, now addressing the crowd as much as Marcus. "You people think you deserve things you haven't earned. You want our wealth, our status, our women, but you don't want to work for it. You just want it handed to you because of some imaginary historical debt." Marcus checks his watch. A simple Timex, not the Patek Philippe he usually wears. The gesture appears casual, but several guests notice the movement. Something about it seems significant, though they can't identify why. "Mrs. Kensington," Marcus says, his voice carrying a new authority that makes several people step back involuntarily. "I'm going to give you one more chance to apologize and walk away from this." "Apologize?" Victoria throws back her head and laughs. "Apologize to you for what exactly? For speaking the truth? For protecting my community from infiltration?" She raises the second wine glass. White wine catching the chandelier light. "You want another lesson in respect? Because I have plenty more to teach." "That won't be necessary," Marcus replies. But Victoria is beyond reason now. Drunk on attention and perceived power, the crowd's shocked silence feeds her performance, making her feel like she's finally saying what everyone really thinks but lacks the courage to express. "You see, this is exactly why we can't have integration," she announces to the room. "Give them an inch and they take a mile. Let one into your neighborhood and property values plummet. Hire one at your company and suddenly you're facing discrimination lawsuits. It's a con game, people. Wake up." She takes a step closer to Marcus, close enough that wine fumes mix with her perfume in a nauseating cocktail. "You want to know what I really think happened here tonight? I think you're working with inside help. Someone gave you information about this event, told you how to dress, maybe even provided the invitation. Who was it? One of the servers? Some guilty white liberal?" Marcus's expression remains neutral, but his posture straightens almost imperceptibly. Around the room, phones continue recording every word, every gesture, every second of Victoria's public breakdown. "Actually," Marcus says, his voice cutting through her rant like a blade, "I think it's time everyone learned the truth." Victoria pauses mid-gesture, wine glass frozen halfway to throwing position. Something in his tone penetrates her alcohol-fueled rage. For the first time since the confrontation began, uncertainty flickers across her face. "The truth?" she repeats, voice slightly less certain. "Yes." Marcus steps forward, no longer the passive target of her abuse. "The truth about who I am, why I'm here, and what your little performance is going to cost your family." The crowd presses closer, sensing a shift in dynamics. Phones adjust angles to capture whatever revelation is coming. The string quartet remains silent in their corner. "You want to know something interesting about the truth, Mrs. Kensington?" Marcus continues, wine stains clearly visible on his white shirt. It has a way of surfacing at exactly the wrong moment. Tonight, for instance. Victoria's grip on the wine glass tightens. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you just destroyed your family's future with a glass of wine and a mouthful of hatred." The words carry an authority that silences the remaining whispers. 400 guests lean forward, collectively holding their breath. "Destroyed our future?" Victoria attempts to laugh, but the sound comes out hollow. "You're delusional. You're nobody. You're nothing." Marcus removes his phone from his jacket pocket. The simple gesture sends ripples of anticipation through the crowd. Whatever he's about to reveal, everyone senses it will change everything. "Mrs. Kensington," he says, finger hovering over the screen. "Let me introduce myself properly." The ballroom falls completely silent except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 20 floors below. Even the servers have stopped moving, trays balanced in their hands as they wait for the revelation that will transform this charity gala into international news. Victoria's face has lost its flush of righteous anger, replaced by a growing pallor as she begins to suspect that her victim might not be as powerless as she assumed. "My name," Marcus says clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, "is Marcus Sterling." He pauses, letting the name hang in the air. A few guests stir with recognition, but most wait for clarification. "And this morning," he continues, "your husband and I signed a contract worth $1.5 billion. The wine glass slips from Victoria's fingers, shattering against the marble floor in a spray of crystal and Chardonnay that mixes with the earlier red wine stains. The sound echoes through the ballroom like a gunshot, marking the exact moment when privilege and prejudice collided with consequence. The shattered wine glass fragments catch the chandelier light, like scattered diamonds across the marble. Victoria Kensington stares at Marcus Sterling, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. The name echoes in her mind, connecting slowly to Forbes articles, business magazines, and conversations she's overheard at country club dinners. Marcus Sterling, she whispers, voice barely audible above the collective intake of breath from 400 guests. CEO and chairman of Sterling Capital Group, Marcus continues, his tone now carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to commanding boardrooms and moving billions of dollars with a signature. Perhaps you've heard of us. We specialize in urban development and community revitalization. The transformation is instantaneous. Marcus doesn't change his posture or raise his voice, but power radiates from him like heat from a furnace. The wine-stained shirt becomes irrelevant against the force of his presence. Guests who moments ago watched his humiliation now recognize they're witnessing the systematic destruction of one of the city's most prominent families. Margaret Thornfield drops her phone, the device clattering against marble as she gasps. "Oh my God, Victoria! That's Marcus Sterling! He was on the cover of Fortune last month." Victoria's knees buckle slightly. She grabs a nearby table for support, knocking over flower arrangements that crash to the floor in cascades of orchids and baby's breath. The scent of crushed flowers mingles with wine and fear sweat. "No," she breathes, shaking her head frantically. "No, that's impossible. You're black," Marcus supplies helpfully. "Yes, Mrs. Kensington. I am. And apparently, in your worldview, that makes me incapable of building a multi-billion-dollar investment firm focused on exactly the kind of community development your husband's company desperately needs to survive." The crowd presses closer, phones capturing every second of Victoria's meltdown. Social media notifications explode across the room as early videos reach viral velocity. Kensington Winegate trends nationally within minutes, though few viewers yet understand the full magnitude of what they're watching. Robert Kensington's business partner, Arthur Vance, pushes through the crowd with growing panic etched across his features. "Marcus, I am so deeply sorry. This is completely unacceptable. Victoria doesn't speak for the company. We can fix this." Marcus turns his attention to Vance with the measured consideration of a judge examining evidence. "Can you, Arthur? Because Mrs. Kensington's performance tonight suggests certain cultural attitudes that might complicate our working relationship." "Our working relationship?" Victoria's voice cracks like breaking glass. "What working relationship? What are you talking about?" Marcus reaches into his jacket and withdraws a leather portfolio. His movements are deliberate, theatrical, designed to build tension. The crowd watches in absolute silence as he extracts a document bearing official seals and multiple signatures. "This morning at 9:47 a.m., your husband and I finalized the largest partnership agreement in Kensington Enterprises history," Marcus explains, holding the contract where everyone can see it. "Borntors, $5 billion in development funding, 30,000 jobs, 50 schools and community centers." He pauses, letting the numbers sink in before delivering the killing blow. "The project was designed to revitalize exactly the kind of communities you believe I crawled out of, Mrs. Kensington. Communities filled with people you consider genetically inferior." Victoria's face drains of all color. She looks like she might vomit. "Robert didn't tell me. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," Marcus replies, "because your husband was intelligent enough to recognize that your presence at business meetings might complicate negotiations." The crowd murmurs with understanding. Everyone knows marriages where one spouse must be carefully managed during professional interactions, but few have seen the consequences played out so dramatically. "The irony is exquisite," Marcus continues, his voice carrying the measured cadence of someone delivering a eulogy. "Your family's survival depends entirely on partnering with the kind of communities you've spent your life working to exclude. The inner-city schools, the affordable housing projects, the minority-owned businesses. We were going to fund them all." The past tense hangs in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Arthur Vance steps forward desperately. Marcus, surely we can move past tonight's unfortunate incident. Victoria will issue a public apology. We'll donate to civil rights organizations. Whatever it takes. Marcus studies Vance with the detached interest of an entomologist examining a particularly fascinating insect. Arthur, do you honestly believe I can partner with a company whose leadership considers me a genetically inferior predator? Do you think my investors would approve of associating with an organization that views my existence as contamination? He turns his attention back to Victoria, who has begun sobbing quietly into her hands. Mrs. Kensington, you asked me earlier if I understood my place. Allow me to clarify something for you. Marcus steps closer, close enough that she has to look up to meet his eyes. When he speaks, his voice carries the quiet authority of someone who has built empires and toppled governments with carefully chosen words. My place is wherever I choose it to be. Tonight, I chose to observe how your family treats people they don't recognize. Your performance has been illuminating. He folds the contract carefully and returns it to his portfolio. The simple gesture feels final, like a coffin being sealed. Mrs. Kensington, you've just taught me that some partnerships are too expensive, regardless of the potential profit. Consider this my withdrawal from all negotiations with Kensington Enterprises. The words echo through the ballroom like a death sentence. 400 guests watch in stunned silence as a glass of wine and 15 minutes of racist ranting destroy a business empire that took 3 generations to build. Victoria collapses into a nearby chair, her diamond earrings catching the light as she sobs. Around her, the Future Foundation's gala transforms into a wake for everything she thought she understood about power, privilege, and place. Marcus Sterling straightens his wine-stained bow tie and walks toward the ballroom doors, leaving destruction in his wake. The grand, majestic hotel ballroom explodes into digital chaos as 400 phones capture the aftermath. Margaret Thornfield's hands shake while uploading video to Instagram, her diamond bracelet catching the light with each frantic tap. "Did that really just happen?" she whispers to her husband, reviewing footage that shows every second of Victoria's racist breakdown and Marcus's devastating revelation. Victoria Kensington remains collapsed in her chair, mascara streaming down her cheeks like black rivers. Her diamond earrings hang askew, and wine stains mar her designer gown. She stares at the doors where Marcus exited, mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "We need to leave now," Arthur Vance hisses, grabbing Victoria's arm. Panic flushes his face as he calculates the financial implications. "The press will be here within minutes." But Victoria cannot move. The number repeats in her mind like a death knell. $1.5 billion gone. Everything, the Hamptons estate, the yacht, her daughter's private school tuition, all depended on money that no longer exists because of 15 minutes of hatred. Around the ballroom, guests cluster in excited whispers. Derek Morrison, a hedge fund manager, waves his phone triumphantly. "I got everything from wine throwing to contract cancellation. This goes viral tonight." He's prophetic. Within 20 minutes, Portoi Victoria Kensington and racist gala trend globally on Twitter. TikTok videos dissecting the confrontation accumulate millions of views. News outlets bombard the hotel with interview requests. TMZ publishes first at 9:23 p.m. Billionaire CEO humiliated at charity gala. Business partner's wife dumps wine, calls him genetically inferior. The article features crystal-clear photos of wine cascading down Marcus's shirt, his expression calm and knowing. CNN follows at 9:45 p.m. with breaking news. Racist attack at elite gala costs company, $1.5 billion contract. Network crews race toward the hotel and the Kensington residence. Robert Kensington receives the devastating call at 10:15 p.m. while preparing for bed, already dreaming of tomorrow's partnership announcement. His business manager's voice trembles. "Robert, check the internet immediately. Victoria—" Christ, I can't explain this. Blood drains from Robert's face as he scrolls through video after video. Each clip shows the same sequence: racist accusations, wine assault, Marcus's revelation, contract death. Comment sections explode with outrage and predictions of corporate collapse. "Jesus Christ, Victoria," he whispers, chest pains radiating down his arm. "What have you done?" Financial reality crystallizes with terrifying clarity. Without Marcus's investment, quarterly debt obligations become impossible. The Hamptons' house faces foreclosure within 60 days. Yacht, art collections, Manhattan penthouses, everything must be liquidated immediately. At Sterling Capital Group headquarters, Marcus's crisis team works through the night. Communications Director Sarah Lane coordinates media responses while monitoring social sentiment. "Sir, the response is overwhelmingly supportive," she reports during a midnight call. "You're being called a hero for exposing corporate racism." Marcus Sterling dignity trends alongside Kensington tags. Marcus sits in his office, still wearing the wine-stained shirt, reviewing legal options with attorneys. "File assault charges tomorrow morning, criminal and civil. Prepare contract cancellation documentation for the SEC. Complete transparency." International outlets pick up the story by 2:00 a.m. BBC headlines: American CEO's racist attack destroys billion-dollar deal. Deutsche Welle analyzes the incident as symbolic of persistent American inequality. Hotel staff clean wine stains from the marble while reporters camp outside, interviewing departing guests. Security footage becomes evidence in what lawyers predict will be the most watched discrimination case in recent history. Victoria finally leaves at 3:17 a.m. through a service entrance, face hidden behind oversized sunglasses despite the darkness. Her silence to waiting reporters only amplifies the story's devastating impact. Stock futures for Kensington Enterprises plummet 60% in after-hours trading. Investment firms begin emergency reviews of all partnerships. Credit agencies place the company on negative watch for immediate downgrade. Employee phones buzz with concerned messages from family and friends who recognize the company name in viral videos. Several executives draft resignation letters, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Religious leaders, civil rights organizations, and political figures issue statements condemning Victoria's behavior while praising Marcus's dignified response. The incident becomes a teaching moment about racism's real-world consequences. Social media analysis shows the story reaching over 50 million people within 6 hours. International audiences share translations in dozens of languages, making Kensington synonymous with entitled racism worldwide. By dawn, the charity gala that was supposed to celebrate hope and community support has become ground zero for the most spectacular corporate self-destruction in modern history. A glass of wine and 15 minutes of hatred destroyed everything the Kensington family spent 75 years building, while transforming Marcus Sterling from a successful businessman into an international symbol of grace under racist attack. The financial markets deliver their verdict in exactly 4 hours. The opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange triggers a financial bloodbath that will be studied in business schools for decades. Kensington Enterprises stock opens at $47 per share and plummets to $8 within the first hour of trading. The electronic ticker displays the carnage in real time as algorithmic trading systems dump shares faster than human traders can process the devastation. "Trading halted," announces CNBC's Jim Cramer, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Kensington Enterprises down 83% on volume 20 times normal. I've never seen anything like this. A wine glass literally destroyed a Fortune 500 company overnight." Robert Kensington sits in his corner office, chest tight with cardiac stress, watching his life's work evaporate on digital displays. His assistant frantically fields calls from reporters, creditors, and panicked board members. The Hamptons mansion already has a foreclosure notice taped to the front gate, photographed by reporters, and shared across social media. At 10:02 a.m. sharp, Marcus Sterling arrives at Kensington Enterprises headquarters for the contract cancellation meeting. A crowd of protesters has gathered outside, holding signs reading "Dignity Wins" and "Marcus for President." News vans line the street like vultures, satellite dishes extended toward heaven, as if praying for more carnage. The boardroom atmosphere feels funeral heavy when Marcus enters. 12 board members sit around the mahogany table, their faces carrying the haunted expressions of people watching their retirement savings dissolve in real time. Robert's hands shake as he attempts to stand, sweat beading despite the air conditioning. "Marcus, please," Robert begins, his voice cracking with desperation. "What happened last night? Victoria doesn't represent our company values. We can fix this. I'll divorce her if necessary. I'll donate my entire personal fortune to civil rights organizations." Marcus places his leather portfolio on the table with deliberate precision. The sound echoes in the silence like a judge's gavel. "Robert, your wife didn't create these attitudes overnight. Her behavior reflects cultural patterns that run much deeper than individual prejudice." He opens the portfolio and withdraws the signed contract, its pages crisp with morning freshness. This partnership was designed to bridge communities, to heal historical wounds through economic opportunity. Mrs. Kensington's performance demonstrates why that bridge cannot be built with your company. Board member Elizabeth Morrison, her voice barely above a whisper, attempts intervention. "Mr. Sterling, surely the actions of one person shouldn't destroy the livelihoods of thousands of employees who had nothing to do with last night's incident." Marcus's expression softens slightly, acknowledging the human cost. "Elizabeth, I understand your concern, but partnerships require trust, and trust requires shared values. How can I explain to my investors that we're partnering with an organization whose leadership views our target communities as genetically inferior?" He removes a Mont Blanc pen from his jacket, the same pen used to sign the contract 24 hours earlier. Sterling Capital Group officially withdraws from all agreements with Kensington Enterprises, effective immediately. The signature takes 30 seconds. The sound of pen on paper seals the fate of a company, a family, and thousands of jobs. Robert Kensington collapses into his chair, the finality striking like a physical blow. Within hours, the domino effect accelerates beyond anyone's calculations. Meridian Bank, holding $800 million in Kensington debt, files emergency motions for asset seizure. Construction projects worth $2 billion halt immediately as contractors demand payment guarantees that no longer exist. The FBI arrives at Kensington Enterprises headquarters with search warrants by 3 p.m., investigating pattern discrimination complaints filed by Marcus's legal team. Agents carry boxes of documents while employees watch in stunned silence, their careers ending in real time as the company dissolves around them. Victoria Kensington's arrest occurs at 4:17 p.m. in the circular driveway of their Hamptons estate. The footage becomes iconic. A once powerful socialite in handcuffs, her designer dress wrinkled, and her diamond jewelry flashing as photographers capture every angle of her humiliation. "Victoria Kensington, you're under arrest for assault with hate crime enhancements, violation of civil rights under federal statute, and conspiracy to commit discrimination," announces FBI Special Agent Maria Santos, her voice carrying the authority of justice finally served. The charges carry potential sentences totaling 15 years in federal prison. Legal experts predict Victoria will plead guilty to avoid trial, understanding that video evidence makes conviction inevitable. Federal Court Judge Patricia Williams, the first black woman appointed to the Southern District Bench, receives the case assignment. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Victoria's fate now rests in the hands of someone she would consider genetically inferior. During arraignment, Victoria's attorney attempts to argue temporary insanity caused by alcohol and social pressure. Judge Williams responds with withering precision. "Counselor, racism isn't a mental illness. It's a choice, and choices have consequences." 4. Bail is set at $5 million, money the Kensington family no longer possesses. Victoria spends her first night in federal detention, sharing a cell with women from the communities she spent decades marginalizing. The civil lawsuit filed by Marcus's team seeks $200 million in damages, citing emotional distress, reputational harm, and business interference. Legal precedent strongly favors the plaintiff, especially given crystal-clear video evidence of the assault. Congressional attention arrives when Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweets the video with commentary. "This is what systemic racism looks like in 2024. Victoria Kensington said out loud what too many think silently. Marcus Sterling's dignity in the face of hatred shows us the way forward." The House Judiciary Committee announces hearings on corporate accountability and discrimination patterns in American business. Marcus receives an invitation to testify as the lead witness, an opportunity to transform personal assault into systemic change. Media coverage explodes internationally. The Guardian headline reads, "American Dream Meets American Nightmare: How Racism Destroyed a Business Empire." Don Lemon analyzes the incident as symbolic of persistent American social stratification. Corporate America responds with emergency diversity audits. Companies scramble to review hiring practices, board composition, and cultural training programs, terrified of becoming the next Kensington Enterprises. The yacht is sold at auction for $30 million, well below market value due to the scandal. The Hamptons estate brings $42 million, enough to partially satisfy creditor demands, but leaving the family essentially homeless. Robert Kensington suffers a massive heart attack on day 3 of the crisis, requiring emergency surgery and 3 weeks of intensive care. Medical bills consume the remaining assets, leaving him dependent on Medicaid, a program his family once opposed as socialist welfare. Employee lawsuits multiply daily as former workers seek compensation for sudden unemployment. Class action attorneys identify patterns of discriminatory practices dating back decades, exposing systematic exclusion of minority contractors and employees. The speed of destruction astounds business analysts. Harvard Business School professor Michael Porter calls it the fastest corporate collapse in modern history, triggered not by market forces or technological disruption, but by moral bankruptcy exposed in real time. Marcus Sterling emerges from the wreckage not just victorious, but transformed into a symbol of dignity, conquering hatred. Speaking requests pour in from universities, corporations, and international organizations seeking to understand how grace under assault can trigger such profound change. The Kensington name, once synonymous with power and prestige, becomes shorthand for the consequences of racism in the modern era. Business schools develop case studies examining how social media amplifies corporate misconduct, making traditional damage control strategies obsolete. Justice arrives not through revenge, but through exposure. Victoria Kensington's 15 minutes of hatred create lasting consequences that extend far beyond one family's destruction, forcing America to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, prejudice, and the price of both. Sunlight streams through the windows of the Sterling Center for Dignity and Justice, illuminating faces of every color bent over computers and textbooks. The building that once housed Kensington Enterprises now pulses with transformation energy, the marble floors echoing with conversations in multiple languages. Marcus Sterling watches teenagers from East Baltimore present urban planning proposals to city officials. Their confidence radiates through suits purchased with scholarship funds from Victoria Kensington's $200 million settlement. Mr. Sterling, Aisha Thompson, 17, approaches with architectural drawings. The community center design is ready. Marcus examines her work with admiration. Clean lines, sustainable materials, spaces for education and celebration. Exceptional work, Aisha. MIT will be lucky to have you next fall. The irony strikes daily. Victoria's hatred inadvertently funded the dreams she tried to destroy. Settlement money created scholarships for 500 students, funding for 200 minority businesses, and affordable housing loans transforming neighborhoods. Across town, Victoria emerges from her literacy center shift, completing court-mandated community service. Federal prison changed her profoundly, sharing cells with women whose children attend schools she helped fund, working alongside people she once considered inferior, learning their stories. Robert Kensington teaches business ethics at Baltimore Community College, using his family's destruction as a moral bankruptcy case study. Students listen intently as he dissects how prejudice poisoned decisions until it destroyed everything. "The wine-glass moment wasn't our downfall's beginning," he tells evening classes. "It revealed our true values to the world." Ripple effects continue expanding. The Sterling Act, signed 6 months ago, requires federal contractors to undergo annual bias audits to maintain diversity standards. Non-compliant companies lose billions in government business. Marcus's congressional testimony sparked nationwide discussions about systemic business racism. His calm recounting, contrasted with the assault video evidence, created undeniable narratives about dignity triumphing over hatred. True justice isn't about punishment, Marcus reflects, addressing Harvard Business School audiences. It's about transformation. We converted one family's exclusionary wealth into inclusion tools. Hatred became hope. Settlement funds continue generating change. Scholarship recipients graduate from top universities. Funded businesses employ thousands. Housing projects shelter families who dreamed of ownership. Corporate America is permanently changed. Diversity requirements become standard, and social media accountability reshapes executive behavior. The Victoria effect warns against casual racism's devastating consequences. The Sterling Center stands as a monument proving great evil can generate greater good when people choose courage over comfort, justice over revenge, transformation over destruction. Daily, we face choices, Marcus tells viewers during final interviews. Prejudice or understanding, hatred or dignity, destruction or transformation. Victoria chose hatred and destroyed her legacy. I chose dignity and built something better. The camera pulls back, revealing hundreds of students, entrepreneurs, and families whose lives changed because one man refused to let racism define his response. Your choices matter beyond imagination. Witnessing injustice? Will you stay silent or speak truth? Holding power, will you exclude or include? Facing hatred, will you respond with hatred or something better? One glass of wine, 15 minutes of hatred. Billions redirected from perpetuating inequality toward eliminating it. What started with wine stains became a blueprint for transformation. When someone shows you their worst, you can choose to show them your best. Legal precedent transforms discrimination law. The Kensington case becomes a textbook study demonstrating how modern technology amplifies both prejudice and justice. International recognition follows. Marcus receives humanitarian awards, speaking at global forums about dignity and conquering hatred through strategic response rather than emotional reaction. This story proves change is possible. If you believe dignity defeats hatred, Subscribe and hit notifications. Share with someone who needs hope. Comment below. Have you witnessed discrimination? How did you respond? Your story could inspire courage in others. Follow for more stories about ordinary people creating extraordinary change. Every small act of courage creates ripples, becoming waves. My challenge: what will you do next time you see injustice? Will you scroll past or stand up? The choice starts with your next action. Like if you believe everyone deserves dignity, share if others need to see grace triumph over hatred. Subscribe to join the solution. What legacy will your choices create? The moral lesson: the echo of character. This story serves as a profound meditation on the law of invisible consequences. We often live as if our private prejudices and hidden biases have no price tag, but character is the only currency that never devalues. 1. The waiter rule. Applied to life. The truest test of a human being is not how they behave in a boardroom or a pulpit, but how they treat someone they believe can do absolutely nothing for them. Victoria looked at Marcus and saw nothing. Because she treated the nothing with cruelty, she lost everything. Never mistake a lack of flashy status for a lack of power. 2. Stoicism as ultimate power. Marcus Sterling did not win because he was richer. He won because he was more disciplined. When Victoria threw the wine, she surrendered her power to Marcus. By remaining still, Marcus forced the world to look at her ugliness and his grace. In life, your reaction is your only true property. If you can control your reaction, you can control the outcome of any conflict. 3. The transparency of the modern era. We no longer live in a world where shadows protect the powerful. Every act of injustice is one smartphone away from a global trial. This story teaches us that integrity is the only sustainable business model. If your private character cannot survive public exposure, your success is merely a house of cards waiting for a single glass of wine to bring it down. Final thought: be careful how you treat those you think are beneath you. The person you push aside today might be the one you have to ask for a lifeline tomorrow. Dignity is not a costume you put on. It is the armor you wear when the world tries to stain you.